Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
You ready? Yeah, it's all right. No, you're okay. I'm going to give you a minute to get going. Okay, I do have that it is 7 o'clock, so we will go ahead and call this meeting to order. If you will please stand with us and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Alright, we'll move on to roll call and we will leave it to just this front table. Sarah, if you'll start us off. Sarah Boyer.
Eric Beecher.
Jason Schultz.
Matt Hirsch.
Lauren Tice Miller.
Erica Price.
Rosa Cavazos.
Rocky Business.
And Renee.
Here.
Can you hear? Okay. Alright, moving on to approval of the agenda and minutes. Looks like we have minutes from the December 7th, 2020 regular meeting and the December 9th, 2020 special board meeting.
Move for approval.
I've got a motion by Jason. Do I have a second? Second by Eric. All in favor, show of hands. And Renee's hand is up for a 7-0 vote. Alright, we will move on to communications, comments, concerns from patrons. This is an opportunity for district patrons to address topics directly relevant to the business of the district or items on the current board agenda. All comments must be directed to the president of the board, and individuals will be given 3 minutes to present ideas, opinions, or concerns. We did receive some emails, but they will not be read aloud. And public comments is reserved for those who have signed up. And we also want to ask that all of you please hold your applause until each individual speaker has finished their comments. And please wear your mask properly at all times, including when you are speaking at the microphone. And I will also say that public comment is reserved only for this public comment portion of the meeting, and so discussion by the board later is reserved for just us. We will start with Jeremy Rathbun.
Good evening. I'm here tonight to advocate and give my 3 elementary school children a voice that I feel they don't have right now. First off, I would like to thank everyone on the board for giving me the time to speak and voice my concerns and frustrations. Second, I would like to say thank you to all the wonderful teachers and support staff that have tried to make these difficult times a lot easier for the parents. I wish I could come to the board with a magic answer that would solve all the problems that our school system is facing right now. All I can do is give you a small peek into what it's like for one of the many parents that reside in the district. As I said before, I have 3 kids in elementary school, ranging from grades 1 through 5. To say this school year has been tough is an understatement. It has been a constant battle to get my kids to want to do their work because they are not able to understand everything that is going on. I have one kid who refuses to do any kind of remote learning because they don't understand why, if they are at home, they can't play and do things at home. The child is very bright and smart and does not have these problems when they are in class. It is very heartbreaking to see my child failing in school. It is very stressful for me to have family friends come over and help with my other 2 children, just so they can stay focused on a Zoom call and get their daily work done. By no means do I feel I have been put into a teaching role. The teachers have done an amazing job of planning out their lessons. The teachers have been amazing in trying to mitigate any problems that have come up. I have spent many nights talking and doing research what the right decision would be, and I have to say there is no clear right or wrong answer. But it has come to a point where we need to look at the risks and see if they outweigh the benefits. Some of my fears are this. There was a recent article that made its rounds out of national news showing that 2 to 3 times more kids are failing at remote schooling. Is it really a good idea to keep them out of school? Is it safe to have my kids in school given the uncontrolled nature of COVID right now? Are my kids' education suffering from them not learning in person? What can I do better as a parent to help my children's education? This is just a few of the questions I have asked myself before I came to speak tonight. My conclusion is this: there is no right answer for our kids if they should stay remote or be fully in person. But I am at the point where my kids' mental health and academics need to come first, and it's suffering greatly. I do not envy any of the board members for having to make this decision for our kids. I only ask that when you do make this decision, that you leave politics out of it and just look at the facts. I will say, I do not think hybrid learning is the answer. It should only be a decision between remote and in-person. Lastly, I just want to say thank you to all our wonderful teachers that have tried to make these times a little bit more bearable.
Thank you. Lindsay Washburn.
Good evening. Thank you for your time this evening. This information is updated as of today from the Shawnee County Public Health COVID Community Impacts Dashboard and the Shawnee County Census Report. The total number of positive cases for ages 5 through 9 years old since March of 2020, the start of the pandemic, is 46 out of 13,253 children, which is approximately 0.3%. The total number of positive cases 10 through 14 years old since March of 2020, 69 out of 10,050 children, 0.68%. The total number of cases 15 through 19 years old since March, 268 out of 11,045 children, 2.8%. In total, 5 through 19 years old since March of 2020, 377 out of 34,348 children in Shawnee County, 1.1%. After reviewing the historical scorecards since August 28th of our district, we have had 69 cases, an average of 0.7 cases per week, including the central office and transportation. This is regardless if it was staff or students. This is also approximately 1.5% of our total staff and student population within the entire district. 40 out of the 69 cases, which is 58%, are from the middle school and high school, yet we are shutting down all the elementary schools. I would also like to point out that Tecumseh North has only had 3 cases since August. This is approximately 0.75% of the students and staff in that building. This data is not outbreak data, nor does it even come close to warranting a complete shutdown of the entire district. As this pandemic plays out over the next 1 to 3 years, there will never be a return of 0 cases of COVID anywhere, nationwide, even with a nationwide 70% vaccine take rate. Do we continue to make our kids suffer over a what-if scenario? We need our kids back in school 4 to 5 days a week immediately following winter break. K through 6 should immediately return to in-person, even if this means going 1 week remote after Christmas break. High school should also return to hybrid at minimum with a solid plan developed to transition to full-time as soon as possible. We cannot postpone this any longer. If we do not return to full-time in person after winter break, our entire spring semester is in jeopardy. Our kids need structure and in-person learning. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Grant Peters. I got a 4th grader and a sophomore here at Shawnee Heights in Tecumseh North. First of all, I'd like to thank you for this opportunity and thank you for you guys and teachers doing what you can do during this. I know it's all new to everybody and everybody has their own opinion of what should be going on. This is just a little bit what's going on in my life right now. It's a 5th grader and a sophomore. My son is an IEP student from 3rd grade until 7th grade. some reason in 7th grade, there was a light switch that kicked on. 8th grade, he did awesome. Now he's an AP student. Well, was until the last month or so. My son now, he was a straight A AP student. My son now has a C minus, 2 D's, and an F. And granted, a little bit of it's probably because everything's thrown on him on Monday. He feels overwhelmed. He has to get it all done that week. You know, trying to judge time. I understand that. We're trying to teach him that. But at the same time, I actually had a parent tell me today that A's aren't everything. And this parent actually works for a college, and I cannot believe this parent actually told me that, and I was pretty upset. This parent's child is in school right now, mine's not. So of course, you know, that's why I don't care. And I told him that why is Shawnee Heights stress good grades and go to college if A's aren't everything? You know, C's don't get you scholarships, A's do, and this time not everybody can afford college. I was honestly scared of my 5th grader not doing too well, but she's doing awesome with the company north. And, you know, I was talking to a teacher from Seaman. They actually have their high school kids logging in during their respectable times throughout the day. They have the grade school kids logging in, which are at daycare or grandma's house or whatever. Most of the high school kids are at home that could be logging in all during their hours of class, but they're not. And that's the time to be asking questions during that class period, just like you would be in school. Hopefully we can get the kids back to school. You know, whether it's hybrid, 4 days, if the state says open the doors, but if not, at least try to get the high schoolers to be able to log in throughout the day so they can talk to their teachers throughout the day and not have to email. And granted, the emails come back within a decent amount of time, but they don't have to email and wait for 2 hours or an hour. I know they're busy with other students, and get onto their subject and then get this email to finish that other work, and it just kind of discombobulates things in a 15-year-old mind. They're not really focus-oriented at 15, 16 years old. So that's all I'm asking is please, at least, if you guys don't get the high school kids back in, at least get them logging in every hour that their actual class is to help them out. Thank you.
Thank you. Troy Showalter.
So I have a senior and a sophomore and a 7th grader in Shawnee Heights District. I don't know how much of the kind of macro global numbers you guys look at for total U.S. numbers, but in case you haven't looked at them lately, I did something this afternoon just to kind of update what the deaths are from the COVID, and 31% of all deaths are of people who are 85 years or older. 60% of all deaths are 75 years or older. 80% of all COVID deaths are 65 years or older. 92% of all deaths are 55 years or older. You just go down through the list. I mean, 35 and up is 99%. So the population below 24 years of age is 0.2% of deaths from COVID. If you look at those same numbers from a total death standpoint, you get remarkably similar numbers. 30% of total deaths are people who are 85 years or older. 54% of all deaths are people 75 years or older. I could read the whole thing, but it basically tells the same story. Why we are shutting schools down over a illness where the deaths affect people primarily 64 years and older is beyond me. I don't know why we wouldn't ask parents, do you want to send your kids to school or not? If you do, sign a waiver that relieves us from liability, and you can send your kids to school. We're still paying for it. Same thing with sports. If you don't think we can occupy a gym that has the amount of space that our gym has, and take the responsibility ourselves for getting an illness, I would gladly sign a waiver to go watch my kids play sports. I mean, one of them just worked. He was a senior and he's worked since he was like 4 years old. So I can't make sense of these numbers based on our actions. It's just not there. Thanks.
Thank you. Stand up.
Thank you. I'd like to spend my 3 minutes discussing the following talking points and thoughts on how we can return our students back to school. First, I think we should contact KU, KSU, Emporia, Wichita State, and Washburn's teaching departments to identify students who could help substitute teach in January and then in the spring, depending on their calendar. Young college kids are perfect candidates to help us fill the sub gap. Also, if more subs are needed, then communicate how the Shawnee Heights community can help. Where do I go to sign up? When do you need me? But I still work another job, so I'm going to have to be able to plan my vacation to be the support staff for a sub, so I need to know when I should plan that. I don't want to take vacation and then not be able to support the community. The district could test 500 of its staff for the antibodies for $12,500. Dillon's is currently offering that, and you could go do that. We recently spent over $50,000 on plastic separators. Maybe we should see how many of our teachers and staff have the antibodies. What efforts have been made to educate the district on healthy living, 8 hours of sleep, proper nutrition, and diet, vitamin sufficiency in vitamin D, C, and zinc? There's a reason that 50 to 70% of people are 100% asymptomatic. And the healthier you are, the better your immune system will fight this and any other virus. What is the plan for the teachers, students, and staff that have now had the virus and have antibodies? These people should be able to attend school with little worry over reinfection. I personally know 21 people who are students or staff in our county that have had corona and have recovered. Since November 30th, hospitalizations are down 30%. And have continued to drop since November 30th. Of the 973 mortalities that can be tied to a cluster transmission of COVID, only 1 has been traced back to a school. Of 973, 1. But one 6th grade student in California recently took his own life in the middle of a school Zoom class. 6th grade student, because of the isolation and frustration from online schooling and how it's having a negative impact on him and our children. We cannot continue to keep our kids under this pressure with lack of social interaction and support for mental health. As a Shawnee Heights community, we must stop stealing the education of our children. We have lost a third of the spring, over half of the fall. We cannot continue this trend. We need to stop focusing on a bus accident that likely won't happen. Let the health professionals manage the hospitals. We need to live responsible lives and return the option of school choice back to the community. 4 members of the board should not be able to override the superintendent, parents, teachers, and students' preferred method of education. Please vote in favor of in-person learning options for our students starting January 4th. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Coates.
Good evening. I know I probably won't change your mind, but I would at least like to give you a little information about how remote learning has affected us as students. In my opinion, this has become a political thing. I don't think your political views should influence the decisions you make for this school. Don't let your political opinions get in the way of what's best for the students. The biggest issue is our mental health. Students are isolated and do not get the socialization they need. Many of us have become very stressed, anxious, overwhelmed, and deprived of sleep, to where we can't do anything and have no motivation to accomplish any work, which leads to learning nothing. I know many people, including myself, who have become very depressed and suicidal. They didn't feel like that until their school year. Several are also going through hard things at home, and school is their place to get away and get a break from those problems, but that is no longer able to happen. Many of the high schoolers, including myself, have to help take care of younger siblings while they're at home. This also allows less time for us to complete schoolwork. The fact that people feel the need to kill themselves in order to get out of their struggle is not okay. There was a high school football player who committed suicide for being remote. Last week, there was a 6th grader in California who killed himself while he was on Zoom. Many students want and need to be back in the classroom. Some kids work great with remote learning, others do not. The ones who work great can have the option to stay remote, but for those who don't, let us have the opportunity to come work in the classroom. Students will leave the district to get the proper education they deserve because it is not provided at this school. So please, don't let your politics get involved with our school, and for the sake of our mental health, let us back in school.
Thank you. That concludes our public comments. We'll move on to item 6, action items, and we'll do A, business by consent.
Move for approval.
I've got a motion by Jason. Do I have a second? Second by Renee. All in favor, show of hands. Renee's hand is up for a 7-0 vote. Item B, consider facility use request Thunderbird Wrestling Club.
This was tabled from the November 16th meetings, and we decided to bring it back at this meeting to relook at it. The Thunderbird Wrestling Club requested to use the middle school basement for their practices on the dates that were provided. Shawnee County, just an update, they did have a meeting today that they decided that practices are allowed for youth, but no games. And then less than 10 people total at each event. So I'm assuming that's practice with staggered practice times. So they are allowing practice, but it would be 10 people per practice event. That's good till January 19th. I think we have a rep from the Thunderbird Club here, potentially. Yeah, come on up if you want to address the group.
So just to recap a few of the items we discussed at the last meeting, some precautions that we're prepared to take. We already, our practices are naturally separated between experienced wrestlers and new or novice wrestlers. So already they're structured, in one evening we already have 2 separate practicing groups. And then within our the division by experience level, the wrestlers are further divided into smaller groups by size and weight, just reflective of the competition structure. So those are things that are already in place and that our coaches and our kids are already comfortable doing, is working in small groups. And then on top of that, we would certainly implement some additional cleaning and sanitizing protocols. We would enforce no parents or visitors in the wrestling room, limit it just to the children and the coaching staff. We'd ask our coaches to wear masks the duration of practice. We would sanitize the mats between our experienced and our beginner wrestling groups. We could do temperature checks beforehand if that was felt necessary. Definitely sanitize hands before, during practice. Bring all of our own waters so we wouldn't be sharing any beverages. And there's definitely willingness from our coaching staff perspective to, currently we do 2 nights a week, but if participation numbers warrant adding an additional night, there's definitely willingness from our coaching staff perspective to accommodate possibly a 3rd evening if there's flexibility with the school. Like that's
I'm assuming I got my information from the paper. I'm assuming it was correct. It was so new they didn't have the on the website yet. The 10 people per event. Have you thought about how you're going to do your practices with only 10 people?
Well, I know I don't have a great answer for that. Last year we had 35 kids total participating, and we haven't opened up our registration yet, so we don't yet have a feel for how many families we actually would be dealing with. I think we can definitely work in groups smaller than 10. From a time and date perspective, limiting 10 in a room at a time, I think would be a little challenging, but I think it's doable. If there's flexibility with the amount of time we have the space and the number of evenings per week we have the space.
Does Coach Parks have any involvement at all with the wrestling club?
Coach Parks is an ally, and he has been trying to help us advocate on our behalf. We have used the high school wrestling room in the past. The last few years we transitioned to the middle school wrestling room to accommodate just other sports in the gym at the time. But yeah, he's definitely, he's not officially part of our board or our organization, but definitely has always been a partner.
I would, if you can meet the guidelines set forth by the county and maintain those restrictions and still have an effective program, then as long as we're absolutely sure that we're going to meet every single health guideline outlined, and then going above and beyond with things such as temperature checks and that sort of thing, I would be in support of this.
Can I ask, would the 10 in a room at a time, would that include wrestlers and coaches?
That's my understanding. I have not seen the county decision, so I'm trusting the paper on this, and sometimes that's not a smart thing to do, but I'm assuming. As soon as we can get that policy, if they decide to go for it, we can get you the correct information.
The original recommendation that Dr. Gavino had made was to keep organized sports suspended until January 19th, and the county commissioners are the ones who revised it to make it the way it is.
That's correct.
One other question. So have you all started practicing currently or not yet?
No, we don't have an alternate facility to use.
And when does your season start?
It would have started last month in a traditional year.
Okay.
My understanding is that they're only allowing practices with a new decision, but no events. So nothing at least starting after January 19th, if I understood right.
I have to be honest, I'm struggling a little bit, and I am all about activities and athletics, I truly am, but when we're struggling with what we're doing within our own buildings at the moment, it's hard for me to say, yes, go ahead, when we have a discussion we need to have, to plan how we're going to move forward with our school year. So
then would it be appropriate at this time to take this item and move it underneath F when we made the decision about what our learning scenario is going to be? We'll have an idea of what kind of scope of use our buildings will be able to have at that time. Then we decide if we make the decision whether we'll let the wrestling club use our gym or use our practice room.
Sarah, is it possible to pass over an item and come back?
It's possible to make a motion to revise this item B to an item F from G.
Okay.
So I would then move at this point to modify item B to move it under item F for a more appropriate decision.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
And the second by Erica. Is there any further questions or Discussion on this motion.
I'm sorry, this is a special meeting?
This is not a special meeting, this is a regular meeting.
Okay.
Seeing no other questions or discussion, we will go to a vote.
I'm sorry, who made the second?
Erica.
Me, Erica.
Vicky.
Okay, all in favor, show of hands. And Renee's hand is up for a 7-0 vote. So we will move that item to the end of the meeting. All right, moving on to item C, approved pay application to Schneider Electric.
This pay application is in the amount of $42,220.99 for work done to date on the energy saving project. H2K has approved the work. If you have any questions, Mr. Hofstra is in the back, and we'd be glad to answer any questions. Otherwise, we recommend approval.
So moved.
Okay, got a motion by Eric, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Jason, all in favor, show of hands. And Renee's hand is up for a 7-0 vote. All right. Moving on to item C, accept grant from Topeka Community Foundation.
The district applied for and was approved for a grant in the amount of $6,500 from the Topeka Community Foundation. The grant was to purchase a second computer monitor and cord for teachers to assist them during distance learning. We had, I believe, 59 teachers request, and this will be able to buy every one of them a second 22-inch monitor. So we recommend approval.
So moved.
Got a motion by Erica, do I have a second?
Second.
Nope, I've got a second from Renee, all in favor, show of hands. 7-0. Next item is approved board meeting dates for the 2021 year.
Attached was the board meeting dates and locations for 2021 calendar year. Recommend approval of that.
Move for approval.
I've got a motion by Jason, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Erica, all in favor, show of hands. And Renee's hand is up for a 7-0 vote. Moving on to approve USD 450 learning scenario movement.
Okay. Start off with the community scorecard. Scorecards pretty much remain the same for about that past 5-6 weeks now. Not much difference from when we made the decision to go remote. You can see the last 2 weeks been mostly in the uncontrolled areas. The full index score was 23 this week and 21 the week before. Number of cases, we've been hovering right around that 1,000 mark for several weeks now. So pretty consistent over the last 4 to 5 weeks. One other thing, part of the decision tonight to bring back up, we talked our last meeting about the change in the elementary gating criteria. The Kansas State Board of Ed did approve changing their gating criteria for the state based off of, I'll go back a page here. Number of cases in Kansas, much like some of the data we were hearing earlier, children aged 0 to 9 account for 3.2% of our cases in the state. KDHE and was looking for statewide data so that they could support what we were hearing nationally in Kansas. And so evidence is showing that students of those age groups, 0 to 10 years, make up a smaller proportion of overall cases, and it suggests that children that age are less likely to transmit the virus if they are infected. So with that, KDHE and the Kansas COVID Work Group for Kids recommended they modify the navigating change. Now this is just the state document. It's guidance for us and recommendations for us. But that recommendation is saying anytime your local metrics or your county metrics suggest being in remote learning, this is suggesting that you either be an in-person or a hybrid, with a couple of criteria met. And the main ones that relate to us are mask wearing, number one, which we always do, and then making sure everybody's physically distanced at least 6 feet from each other the majority of the day. And if that can't be accomplished, then either doing a hybrid model where we can do 6 feet, or looking at cohorts of 5 in the classroom. So you have groups of 5 spread out 6 feet apart the majority of the day. We kind of talked about that last time. Another piece to add in before we get to our stuff is we did survey. We've at a stage now where we've been through every learning scenario. So we wanted to talk to our elementary teachers about how effective has it been, how effective in-person versus hybrid versus remote has been. We felt like that was important to get a feel for what they thought was the most effective both for academic learning and social emotional learning. The most effective this is all the elementary teachers combined, just looking at elementary teachers only. The most effective for academic learning was in-person learning at 81%. So overwhelmingly, they felt like obviously when kids are here, they learn best. Don't think that's a shock to anybody. Same thing for social emotional learning. Obviously, they felt like in school was the best situation. The second highest, somewhat effective. For academic, the 63% said hybrid. For social emotional, the second choice was hybrid, also at 79%. Least effective in the staff's and the teachers' minds was remote learning in both cases, 67 and 85. So what that kind of gave me is a little bit of guidance on where do you go if you're not doing in-person learning. And from the teacher standpoint, the next best effective one, both for academic and social emotional, was being in hybrid learning. We then asked them a question, what their preference was. Now, just so you know, preference brings into account all types of things, sense of safety, looking at learning options, looking at how they feel themselves and the students is best for everybody. And what you're going to find amongst the certified staff, which is mostly teachers, straight classroom teachers, it's a split. 31% said in-person, 30% said remote, about 19% said hybrid. There was still, at the time we did this earlier this week, about 18% unsure. We're believing that was probably just people that we're 3 weeks away from January, and they just didn't know where we'd be at that point, and so they weren't sure what they might pick. So we could assume some of them would go toward some of the different ones. But if we look at all elementary staff, we're talking paras, secretaries, custodians, everybody. Similar numbers from the other. Remote wasn't quite as high, but otherwise fairly similar. So with that, and looking at all the things I've kind of brought up, looking at our own learning scenario, read up there. Where we're at is the county score is 22, or 2-week average, so cases, absenteeism, hard to give a real good feel for that. We haven't been in school, so it's hard to give a good feel on how we were doing, but I felt like we were pretty much about the place where we were when we went to full remote. Quarantines are down. It's hard to judge that. I don't believe we've been getting quite the communication from home that we were before, so some of that may be some of that. It's hard to tell. But it's down, way down. We were in 200 quarantines when we were leaving the first time, and so the hope is that number is down. Cases are probably up a little bit overall, but with the two combined, we're probably about the place we were last time. So my recommendation is going to be doing orange, scenario 2, hybrid learning for pre-K through 12. And I'd also suggest we bring back, along with that, we have, even with the elementaries, a little bit of room, possibly in some of the classrooms, we can still social distance. Some of our struggling students, some of our special ed students, we brought back a few of the special ed last time. I would suggest with the hybrid this time, look across the board. Are there any extra kids we can bring in that are just really struggling with the remote learning, and see if we can get 2 extras in the classroom. So some kids may be doing 3 days or 4 days instead of just the 2. With that said, I think the other thing is that goes with this. The decision we need to make as a group is when, if you decide you like the hybrid, when would that start? I'm comfortable with bringing them back January 4th. I think we have shown hybrid because of the social distancing we can do, because of all the other precautions we have. We can do that safely for everybody, staff and students. But there is some thought. I think, do you start it right after January 4th, or we have the end of the quarter in 2 weeks from there? Do you wait till the end of the quarter and start it on January 19th, which would be right after the quarter? I think that's a good discussion. I think there are some of the principals are here to give you some pros and cons of one versus the other. I know the high school, the sooner they can get those kids back, it might save a few from failing classes potentially. I see Ed nodding back there, Mr. West nodding. Probably Mr. Urick could probably vouch for that too. So that's one reason maybe you'd start them earlier. But there's pros and cons both directions. So I'll open it up to you guys from there.
So let me ask this, the hybrid model meets all the social distancing guidelines set forth by the health officials, right?
Yes, we can, in every classroom, we can social distance 6 foot at all times. When we were in the all in the elementaries for 4 days a week, we were doing those cohort groups, and we were considering that cohort to be one group, and they didn't always have to social distance, and they weren't able to in their rooms at all times. One reason that bothers me a little bit is mostly because of lunch, to be quite honest. At lunchtime, many of them were eating in their classrooms, and masks were off completely. We were using the shields to help with that. But I know that you got 20 kids or more in a classroom with an employee in there, and that was a concern for them.
Can you, I know you mentioned before that you meet with superintendents weekly, right, around the area. And I know locally Seaman, very comparable to us, has full in-person learning at the elementary levels. Are they experiencing any spread or issues with breakouts in their elementary schools?
Yeah, I met with county superintendents this morning, or right about lunchtime today. didn't know the question at that point, but we talked about it a little bit, and the best I remember him saying is, I don't believe they're having a lot of issues. They are, all their elementary kids are in. I don't know the precautions they're taking, to be quite honest. I think they're just doing full classrooms, kind of like we were doing cohort groups. I think they're doing the same thing. So as far as I know, they've been able to handle it, and cases are still okay, and quarantines are okay.
I was struck. I know we all received the same email. It was a couple weeks ago. We had a teacher, and I'm not going to share a name because I don't think it'd be appropriate for me to. But this person shared that they have really what I would consider a very serious health issue and concern. And this teacher, I think, is amazing. I mean, she had indicated that she's a little frustrated with us as a board, and I say all of us, that we went back from hybrid to full remote. And this person had, because she said she felt safe in the hybrid model, and that immediately after transitioning to full remote, her students, I think gave the example, I'm going to misremember it, that it was like something like 8 out of 28 kids or something turned in your stuff on time. And turned it in at all. Or decided they didn't need to show up to stuff. And that person in that with their condition, if they can feel safe and they feel safe, I think the best thing we could do is as a board is come back in a hybrid model as soon as we can.
If we started January 4th in the hybrid learning model, what would you feel the possibility would be at the start of the second semester, going back to the elementary schools, going 4 days a week?
It's going to depend on the county numbers. For me to make that change, I've been very consistent trying to follow our criteria that we set early in the year. So we're going to have to see the county numbers get a lot better, to be honest. Do I think that's going to happen by January 4th, our next meeting, so we make that decision? I don't think so. But I don't have a crystal ball either. But that would be a huge change. I mean, we're at 1,000 cases. Our data is always a week behind. And so I don't have anything that's showing me this week's changing. We've got Christmas and New Year's coming up after that. Obviously, popular times for get-togethers and different things, and so.
And there's a website out there that shows the daily case rate every single day. And I looked, and I think it peaked at 263 cases in one day on the 2nd of December. And so it's lines up to about 13 or 14 days right after Thanksgiving. And you can see it steadily climbing, just max out there, and it's trending down. And looks like back on the 12th here of December, it had fallen down to 51 cases, and it was just still significant. But I would expect that to kind of continue on down when we hit Christmas, and it'll probably spike and peak out again on the December.
As a board member, when you're sitting up here and you're trying to remember what your responsibilities are, and I think our biggest responsibility is to do what's best for our kids. But we have to keep the well-being of our staff as a priority, and we have to listen to our patrons and our parents' voices. And when you read all of the emails, you listen to all of the comments tonight, you know, we listen to each other. We've got to find some kind of compromise to get back to having all of our kids in the classroom. And I don't think any of us up here are going to be 100% happy with what we all come together as a compromise. But we do have a large group of parents and staff members who are not quite comfortable going all in on January 4th. And I wish I could sit here and say that and make everyone happy and go the way I really want to go. But I feel like we can find some middle ground here and start working towards getting our kids back into the classroom.
I agree with a lot of what you said there, but if we were to find middle ground, we can't retreat back. Once we set that line, and you know, we draw that line, that's got to be, that's got to be a line that the Kansas State board, you know, and must have been an email out this week saying, you know, they've decided that, you know, that's best for the kids to be in person. And kind of, you know, as long as we are doing the responsible thing in the district to mitigate all of that, especially at the elementary level, we've got to be some shape or form in person. And, you know, if we can come to an agreement or a compromise, we've got to say that this is the baseline, and we can't retreat from this.
I agree with that. I mean, and also, you know, one of the big things has been consistency for our teachers. And I can see, you know, the last big gathering is going to be New Year's Eve. And 2 weeks after that is right at the beginning of our second semester. And I think a safe, responsible option would be to, for the sake of consistency and keeping everyone's safety as a priority, and to come back in remote for the first 2 weeks and start our second semester off on the right foot in hybrid with the goal of getting our kids back into the classroom.
Yes, Renee.
I would be amicable to that kind of compromise. The thing that I'm worried about is the gatherings over Christmas and New Year's, and I think if we give it a couple of weeks for those interactions and any consequences to die down, I think that we might be able, provided all the numbers are showing up right, we're not going into some kind of crazy event in the hospitals. I think, of course, we need to get the kids back in the classroom. So I would be willing to go with that kind of a compromise.
Would it benefit to have a couple of my principals talk about some of the pros and cons of starting the 4th versus the 19th? Would that help anybody?
Yes.
If I could get Mr. West, Mr. Urick, and Mr. Hummer, I think you're doing elementary, right? Maybe you guys could get some feedback on that.
I hate to interject, but I came from home. We can't hear you over the computer. The audio with your mask, I'm not making fun of the mask, but we cannot understand any of you when you're saying at home. I've tried the iPad, I've tried the phone, I've tried the TV.
We're just going to have to work with it because we have to wear these, so we'll do our best.
I can speak from an academic standpoint. I think you got the numbers in terms of the health and safety measures. Typically over the course of the semester, and I'm going to refer in terms of the academic, the one data point for tonight would be the academic warning list. That's a list that comes out weekly that tracks any student who has 2 or more failing grades in a particular class. In a normal traditional school year, that range, it peaks out at about 135 normally. You may have a moment or two where it might hit 150, but that's not every year, and that's certainly not common. Again, usually it peaks out at about 135 students. This, under a traditional school year, would be finals week for us. And right now, it would be setting at about 110, and by the end of the semester, it would drop somewhere in the just under 100. Currently, this semester, I ran it this morning, we have 263. At the start of the year, it peaked out at about a little over 300, and that's just because, if you remember, at the start of the year, we had the learning logs. Our teachers were able to front load 10 days worth of lessons, and the combination of the two, they unleashed a lot of work on students. So once we found that balance between the amount of work that our teachers are given, utilizing the hybrid schedule along with the Modern Classrooms project with the video for direct instruction, we kind of found that balance, and those kids who were able to engage on a regular basis were able to do quite well. We have a lot of students who are doing really, really well under this scenario. But again, our AWL list as of this morning was 263 students. I give the students a lot of credit. They're fighting hard. They're giving us everything they can on a regular basis. It's held steady for the first 2 weeks of remote. It's bounced in the 250s to low 260s pretty much since early November, for about the last 6 weeks or so, and again, including the last couple of weeks. If the board felt comfortable and brought the students back on January 4th, that would give us a couple of weeks prior to the end of the semester in order to try to get some of those grades going. We're not going to run a separate final schedule, a special final schedule. We're going to compress finals into the 2 days utilizing the block schedule, and I'm encouraging teachers to utilize their best judgment on what kind of a final, if any, that they give. I know a lot of our college finals are taking place right now. I know a lot of our other teachers are giving some finals right now too, unit tests. So finals week will be lighter than normal. So there'll be a little bit more time and opportunity for our students to utilize those 2 weeks to play a little bit of catch up. The other big piece, which is somewhat irreversible, students can get incompletes, and we actually do that with dozens of kids. We give them an incomplete and allow them additional time to finish their work. Of course, they have to do that on top of the new 7-period schedule that they have for second semester. But what is irreversible is the CASHA guidelines, which requires that at the end of a semester, students must pass 5 classes in order to be eligible. And again, that AWL list is just students failing 2 or more classes. So many of those students, even on that list, are passing 5, but many are not too. We're keeping track of who our students are. We're actually trying to provide, we're providing additional supports for anybody who needs it, but we're certainly helping to target and make sure we communicate through our coaches and our athletic director, those athletes who are kind of on the verge, to make sure that they understand the ramifications of not passing classes. So any day that you feel comfortable having kids in the building, it is helpful academically, and I think you know that too, but there's just some data to help support that as you balance that with the health and safety measures as well. So any questions on that?
I have a question. I haven't seen much come out of the Kansas Board of Regents. Are they making any adjustments to the criteria by which they are having colleges accept students? I mean, are they recognizing the fact that this is not a normal year by any means, and thus our seniors and whatnot are not necessarily going to have what a normal year would look like?
I know that the criteria for qualified admissions has gone away in terms of the classes that are necessary to get into college. I can't speak specifically. I could prepare. I'm sure that documentation's out there. I'm just not familiar enough to go on record on that too. I'm not familiar with what type of stipulations they may have made in terms of test scores or grade point average or whatnot. But yes, they have made, starting last spring, they have made some concessions, and those may or may not be permanent. I don't know if it was related just to this situation and it's temporary or not, but yes, they have recognized the need to be flexible and have done so in many areas in terms of admissions. I can't speak to the scholarship criteria. I know, again, many schools were changing the scholarship criteria anyway as well. It's kind of a trend unrelated to the pandemic.
Mr. Lester, I have a question. Is it possible and I don't know what this does, if we do go back to hybrid, that students could be in all 7 of their classes both days that they're in hybrid. Is that
It's possible, but it's not a good idea.
okay?
Several reasons. If you think in terms of general numbers, there's about a third of our classes that operate better, meeting both days that the students would be in the building. Math and foreign language courses are a couple of them that come to mind. Measurably better, but not significantly better compared to the other group, which I'll speak to. About a third of our classes, it doesn't really matter. Our teachers are able to create good lesson plans and implement good learning opportunities for our students under either schedule. And then about a third of our classes would be significantly hindered by only having 40 minutes or so of learning opportunity time. Think of some of our career and tech ed courses, our fine arts courses. Under the scenario, under a hybrid scenario, our science courses would be hindered dramatically from that too. So when you put that all together, our building leadership team, which is mostly our department chairs, representatives from each department, made the decision to recommend block, and we've kind of stuck with that. A couple other things to keep in mind too is when we're required to take attendance every day, and we have utilized T-bird time to do that, because again, we have remote students and hybrid students. That gives us 8 classes throughout the day, if all 7 classes plus T-bird time would meet. Gives us 7 passing periods in the middle of the day, and if you remember, social distancing is cumulative, and so less passing periods works in our favor. And because of the T-bird time, which is right now is a 20-minute, which is enough now, but if we start integrating some individual plans of studies and certainly some enrollment activities for the next year, 20 minutes is going to be a squeeze, plus the 6 minutes of passing period on the end of that as well. When you divide your time up among the other 7 classes, you don't get what our students think they get last year. Then on top of that, you need your lunch period has to be at least 55 minutes plus the 25 minutes that the kids get to eat, because we have 3 different lunches, and if you 3 are in different lunches, you each need 25 minutes. That means that a couple of you have to be in your classroom for at least 50 minutes. You have to give us time to clean in between, and we're pretty good at that. We're fast, but again, that's 55 minutes. So when you divide the remaining time among the other 6 classes, it is closer to 40 than the 48 or 49 that students at the high school would think that they get. So you throw that all into a bucket, and we are where we are at for a reason.
I know one of the other things that has been brought up is if at the high school level we had, and probably middle school, if it was possible to do Mondays and Thursdays for Group A and Tuesdays and Fridays for Group B. What are the thoughts behind that?
We did not discuss that because that was not open for discussion. I think early on the thought was, I'm assuming, I'm not sure where the decision made, but I believe early on the thought was a Monday, Tuesday with a clean break between cohort groups leading into the Thursday and Friday for the mass cleaning, for the opportunity to catch up with some close contacts. There would be the possibility, I'd have to think through that just a little bit, there would be the possibility that we might get caught additional opportunities for contact tracing if there was a couple of days in between where a student might have been in class contagious rather than back to back, but I'd have to think through that a little bit. I can just say that it really wasn't a building level discussion in terms of a Monday, Tuesday versus a Monday, Thursday, and I do believe most of that had to do with keeping the 2 cohort groups separate with the clean break in between, which may or...
Perfect, thank you.
Sure. Anything else?
Mr. Yerrick had indicated at the middle school level, Mr. West, can you hang on?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was ready to give this up to Mr. Yerrick. I was more than ready.
Last board meeting, Mr. Yerrick had indicated that 55% of the students are doing great with the remote learning, and that the 25% are struggling, but with a little help and a little push, it's effective. and then another 20%, it just is, for lack of better words, just not working on necessarily.
Right.
So is that fairly consistent with what you're seeing at the high school?
Yeah, Mr. Hirsch gave me reason to break down the numbers a little bit by grade level. And I'll use again the AWL list as a single point of data. There's lots of other things we can look at. As of this morning, again, the 263 students that were failing at least two classes, two or more classes. At the ninth grade level, it was right around 25%. At the 10th and 11th grade level, it was just slightly more than 25%. All three of those groups, it would be accurate to generalize and say about 1 in 4 is on that list. So that kind of falls in that 25% range that Mr. Urick was talking about. Our seniors are doing better. It was about, I think it was about between 13 and 14% of the seniors were on that list. So yes, I would say that that 25% of our students that are struggling academically would fit the 9th through 12th profile as well. I would suggest by looking through lots and lots of grades, lots of students, that the 55% would be pretty well on target too. We do have some kids that are just, they're doing well. And I think they would under any scenario for sure. I can tell you that, those kids would, there's still things they miss. We had a survey that we talked about at a site council meeting, and I know Ms. Price was a part of that as well. That our kids miss sitting around the lunch table, and they're not going to be able to do that under any scenario, 9 or 10 or 12 around the table. But they miss going to dances, they miss going to ball games. There's a lot of things they miss. But academically, yeah, I would say that it's safe to say that 55% of our kids are doing quite well.
Has there been a survey of social, the things that might trigger catching kids that might be considering suicide or depression?
We do some of that as well, yeah. And I know our counselors, one of the reasons why we have our counselors and our assistant principals reach out, especially to those remote students, our counselors and assistant principals are their source of daily contact for our remote students who are never in the building, is to help monitor that. We also use our Stop It app, and then we do have some information that kind of goes back and forth between our adults and our students. Nothing on a formal basis specific to that kind of behavior and thinking, but generally speaking, our social emotional well-being of our students is targeted, is monitored, and it's certainly brought into consideration as we talk about alternatives and activities.
Last thing though would be is have those numbers increased now that when was the last time you did that? I guess checkpoint went on, and then those numbers increase or figures increase that would spark any concerns since we've been in a remote scenario.
No, not specific to the extreme that you're talking about in terms of a student's well-being and potential to harm themselves. We have not noticed an increase in that over the course of the semester.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Would you like to give some middle school perspective?
Well, my name is Tim Urick. I'm the middle school principal. Thank you so much, and good evening. To your point, Mr. Buznitz, the way that we're teaching and learning at the middle school and really at the secondary level is highly effective for 55 to even 60% of students, mostly effective for the next 20%, and then not effective at all for the bottom quintile of students, sometimes going up to as high as 25%, and then not effective at the middle school is just a definition I created, and that means failing at least or earning D's and F's in at least 50% of your classes. And so today that's 23% of the middle school students. And how I spend my time now, because I don't have to walk around and supervise students' academics and behavior in person, I spend most of my day on Zoom meeting with students and conducting academic advisement appointments. And the purpose of that is to help them to create a learning plan and to follow a learning plan, to make appointments with their teachers, and to increase academic outcomes. The reason that the bottom quintile of students just is not successful in remote learning is their inability to create a learning plan before they start working and then follow a learning plan throughout the day and to feel motivated to do their work. So I consider that a barrier, and the way we solve that barrier is with the bell schedule and access to high quality teachers. So I feel very comfortable that we can bring students back to the Shawnee Heights Middle School on January the 4th. We school very safely. We have very effective mitigation strategies in place to do that. Our learning model before we went remote was called Hybrid Max, and that's a term coined by Assistant Principal Brad Mickens because we had approximately 100 special education and at-risk students that came to school 4 days a week. And they were either in their classes for those extra 2 days or they were in our library study hall program because in some instances we just don't have room for them in class and the ability to maintain social distance.
So there's 20% of students that are struggling, 25% now that are getting D's and F's now. How would you catch them up? How would you bring them up to speed so they're not left?
Well, the way to catch them up is to have them in school, and then we have to have internal conversations as grade level teams about where our students are. We have those conversations all the time. The student data helps the teachers determine what instruction to provide and what remediation the students need. We're continuously assessing the students, finding out where they are, and providing the instruction to help them grow.
Thank you. Ms. Hummer, would you like to give some elementary perspective?
I'm speaking on behalf of our elementary administrators. Your question, in order to help you just better answer that, we have 9 instructional days between the time we come back in January and the end of the quarter. So if you were to choose to go with hybrid, each student would have 4 in-person or live teaching days, with 5 of those days, other days being traditional remote days. If you were to choose to go with remote, each student would have 8 live teaching days online, as our elementary teachers are teaching daily, at least 3 to 4 times a day via Zoom sessions with every kiddo. So they are providing live instruction on 4 of 5 days a week. And so if you were to choose remote, we would have 8 live teaching days with each kiddo, and we would have 1 traditional Wednesday day in those 9 days. We were asked to consider some pros or some cons of, I'll just take remote. If we were to come back in remote, there is a pro that the data that we sought from our staff and the feedback that we sought from them would be utilized. We would still have qualified staff who are providing live instruction for kids remotely. We would have 1 less transition for kiddos, as we're currently in remote, and it wouldn't be a transition. Yet a huge con, which you've heard from secondary level, is that we do have 13% of our kids right now at the elementary level who are not engaged. And when we say not engaged, we have defined that as buildings of students who are not in attendance at least 50% of those live Zoom sessions, or they are not completing their work and turning it in. So the challenge, the big con there is we are missing a group of kiddos, and how can we help engage them within those 9 days as well? So that's kind of where we were looking at our pros and our cons, and you have a big decision to make, and we just want to provide you the information that you need from us. What other questions might you have? All right.
Thank you.
All right.
Going into this, into the remote, I think was the right thing to do at the time. I think that it has, I don't regret the decision we made with that. Setting up for tonight, I've been thinking that, moving forward, we come back in the hybrid mode. Going back and forth as to when we would come back in the hybrid mode, like Erica pointed out, it's a struggle. And the safety side of me would say that we wait the 2 weeks. But the information that our building administrators have shared, it's hard to ignore. And there's definitely an advantage to getting our kids in sooner than later. In the hybrid mode, we're able to maintain the social distancing and to address those safety issues. We can't do that even in the 4-day mode. And we got classrooms with 20 kids in there, even doing the cohort, it's still, we can't do it. I would support, I think as a compromise, is to come back in the hybrid January 4th with the ability, as Matt pointed out and what the elementary school principals, administrators have pointed out, and addressing those that need the additional attention to figure a way to work that into the process as well. But then at the end, and make a commitment to stay in the hybrid mode through January, and then look to see where we're at with the numbers. Because I agree, I think that the county numbers are going to go up coming out of the holidays. But that would make a commitment, a little stability, for at least for January. And then at the last meeting of January, and maybe we even have a special meeting to address what we could do from that point forward.
Yeah, and we've always had the understanding in an emergency situation if something happened crazy, Matt has the authority or ability to do what he feels is necessary. And so, yeah, I would agree with you there.
I had every intention of coming here tonight. I've been adamant since November 16th that, come January 4th, our kids are coming back hybrid. I want them back in the classroom. I do. And, even as late as Friday when we had a pre-board meeting, I was saying, yeah, let's do it January 4th. And then emails started coming in. And, I've received at least 36 emails. I've received multiple messages through other channels of communication as well. And then today, I received a handwritten letter in the mail as well. And the overwhelming majority of them asked for consistency, and they asked for us to, follow the county. And, I look at our back to school plan that we passed, and since day one when we passed it, one of the things that I've been saying is, whatever we do, I want to be consistent, and I want our parents to be able to plan, and I don't want to go back and forth, and I don't want to take it 1 week at a time. And I really thought that when we agreed back in July, it was even kind of a leap of faith. His numbers weren't that great. They were certainly not where we are today, but they weren't that great. And we had just gotten through the state board, rejecting the executive order to delay schools, but we locally decided a compromise would be to start September 1st. And we approved our back to school plan, and we said, we'll do this. It gets us 6 weeks, and, it'll give us the opportunity to get the numbers down. Well, the numbers didn't really go down. They stayed pretty consistent, but we made it through in hybrid, surprisingly, far longer than we ever anticipated. And then for the last 5 weeks, we have been in red. Our hospitals are overcrowded. The people are dying on a regular basis, on a daily basis. And, Dr. Pizzino, who has a wealth of public health experience, makes these recommendations, and I take what he says very seriously. And in listening to everything that was asked of us in the emails. And again, looking at the back to school plan, where even if we are in orange, our options are hybrid or remote. And, you know, there was a common theme of how difficult it was to reorganize the students from switching from the hybrid to the 4%, all of that. He was right on the edge of the quarter. And so in thinking about that, you know, I think you're onto something, Erica, with this compromise of giving everybody a little more time, ensuring the consistency, getting the time to get through our holidays, and then, but I want a set date of when the hybrid is. So I would want, if the compromise is to stay in 2 weeks for the 9 instructional days, to get us through the end of the quarter so we can get through that, so our teachers and staff can get through all of that. But then what I want to see is that we say, yes, we're going hybrid and we're staying in hybrid through the rest of the, however, the quarter or whatever that may be, until we see those numbers consistently come down. And we can safely start bringing more students in. Because even the state board, what they adopted in their grading criteria, doesn't indicate that we should be bringing everybody back now. So I do support the compromise that you have proposed, Erica. I'm struggling, and I'll tell you, this is so hard, and I've had so many sleepless nights, as we all have, and I had every intention, and I'm still in my head, you know, going with, let's start hybrid on the 4th. Then, as you said, Lauren, we had all of these emails come in that said, can we wait until second semester, until that mid-January date? And, you know, for every person that is saying, you know, here, and we're hearing you, there's still people that are not here that have sent emails and have called or written letters. So, you know, we go back and forth, and we're 3 against and 4 for, and 4 against and 3 for, and you know, I kept thinking in my mind, and I've been reading and just trying to figure out what is the best thing for our students. And we all agree that they need to be back in school. You know, one thought that came to mind was, in the middle, you know, at the end of the quarter, do we just say we're going to go 4 days a week and bring the students back and at least have that 2-week time in remote, and then everybody comes back 4 days a week at the quarter? Then I fear that if we do that, then numbers go crazy and suddenly we change our mind. And I don't want to do that. I don't want to say, okay, we're coming back 4 days a week, middle of January, and then something happens and we're like, no, we're just kidding, we're going to come back in hybrid. And so I'm struggling with that. I'm struggling about when do we start. Is it the 4th or is it the 14th? Is that right, Mrs. Hummer? 19th. Oh, there's 19th. And, you know, when do we come back full time? Because our kids need to be back in school full time. I am very happy with what we did in doing this period of remote, and I know it wasn't an easy decision. I know I struggled with it, with that vote. And so, if we do remote, and as Eric said, does that mean in February, can we bring all the kids back 4 days a week at least? Is it on January 19th that we bring them back 4 days a week so that second semester is over and they start 4 days a week. I feel like we have to, we've adjusted and we've made all of these necessary precautions and changes, and at some time we're gonna have to let them fly and see what happens. And that's what I'm struggling is I'm like, we have to I know numbers aren't necessarily gonna get better, but our administrators and our teachers are doing such a great job, and we're gonna have to create some sort of normalcy for our students and for our families. And if I could give everyone extra dollars to be able to afford to stay home or something, I would. And I feel bad that it's causing so many families some financial struggles, and it's tough in so many ways. And I realize this is the world that we're living in, but as much as we're preparing our students to adapt, we also have to prepare them to adapt in school as much as we are out of school. And so it's not a matter for me about not having our kids back in school. It's just a matter of when, and is it 2 days or is it 4 days? That's where I'm struggling. And I want our teachers, to feel comfortable being in school, but we need to have our kids back as soon as possible. And, I guess the 19th seems so far away, so I can't even say that that's remotely possible in my mind, is to wait until the 19th. So now it's just a matter for me, is it 2 days and when is it going to be the 4 days? I was thinking it was the 14th in my mind, and so I was like, oh, that's just 10 days. But I'm just battling, so I'm just really struggling at the right time. But I'm in agreement that we have to get them back to school, and we have to make the necessary adjustments to get everybody back in school as soon as possible.
I'm going to go ahead and make a motion, and you guys think about it, okay? Okay. I'm going to make a motion that we return in remote until the start date back of the second semester, which is January 19th, and we start in hybrid with the intention of moving into our all-in 4 days for our elementaries. And we received a recommendation from Mr. Hurd.
Okay. Okay, so I've got a motion by Erica and a second by Renee. Are there any further questions or comments on the motion?
You got it.
I would ask for a few comments, please. Just so on the, I get what you're trying, I get what you're doing, and you want to see the board come together and be unified, and I get that. Would you consider, so what my research is, when I've done any research on this, majority of cases and symptoms will show themselves within 6 days. And there is an incubation period that it could be 14 days, but vast majority, it would show up after 6 days. And knowing that the last big gathering or event that really is going to bring people together is going to be right around New Year's. Would you consider amending your motion to be the 11th of January? I know where I'm at. Personally, I'd like to see them back on the 4th, but if it can give them just a week sooner, maybe give them a little time to catch up before the semester, address some of those academic warning issues that are out there. It's not ideal, but I'd be willing to meet you in the middle if that's, if you would want to do that.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Mr. Yurk and Mr. West, if would the 11th, starting on the 11th back in hybrid, would that cause any major issues?
Well, we do remote. We do remote for a week and then hybrid.
Ms. Hunter also, I wouldn't mind hearing your comment on that.
Just thinking through that, the week of the 11th, 11, 12, 13, 14, so that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, that would be our finals week. And again, we're trying to be flexible in terms of what that looks like. But I know in some of those, some classes, that would be what our kids would experience when they come back, would be the final, in terms of the one day of the semester that they would be there. Having said that, that's not all of the kids and that's not all of the classes, and I'll stick to my earlier statement that any days that you can give us where kids are in school are better than at home academically. Obviously, you're away in health and safety, and I respect all that. But from an academic standpoint, any day you could give us would be better than the week later. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, the 11th is better than the 19th, and from an academic standpoint, the 4th is better than the 11th. Yeah.
I recognize that a compromise may be required. The 4th would be better than the 11th, and the 11th is better than the 19th.
We are all in agreement with that. That would be a healthy compromise.
Yeah, but I have a problem with that, in the fact that we come back on January 4th. We have 2 weeks to the end of the semester. I feel that we need to do one, we need to choose an option for those 2 weeks, close out the semester, and then start the second semester and finish off the year, whether we choose to go remote, whether we choose to do, for the elementary schools, 4 days in. But we need to choose an option for the end of the semester. Personally, I'm torn between staying full remote for those last 2 weeks. We've been full remote so far. Let's finish it out and start the second semester fresh, or take those 2 weeks, get everybody acclimated coming back into school, get systems rebooting, for the possibility that come the 19th, we can start getting our elementary school students back in 4 days a week, and we can keep the hybrid at the high school. Because that, the end result should be we get our kids back into the schools. And we need to be working toward that end. Now, the evil thought has crossed my mind. If we choose to stay full remote for the last 2 weeks of the semester, maybe the numbers will work out right where we can go back hybrid / kids full-time in the elementary schools to start the next semester. I would like to see our elementary schools back in the class, back 4 days a week, starting the next semester. Lord willing, the creeks don't rise. But right now, I feel we need to go back to remote. we need to go back to remote, or we need to do hybrid for these next 2 weeks. Not 1 week in one mode, the next week in another. If, the semester is the natural break point. We need to use it. How do I feel about what mode we want to go into for those 2 weeks? I'm still trying to figure that out. The only thing I'm sure of is we pick one and we stick with it for 2 weeks.
As a reminder, Erica, the motion that you made was for us to be in remote from January 4th through the end of the semester, and then starting at the beginning of second semester, which is January 19th, we would come back hybrid and stay hybrid until the numbers allow us to start introducing more student staff. Was that your motion?
You know, it is, but
Lauren, can I call a question on that motion?
You can.
I would like to call a question on that motion.
Okay, so Renee is calling the question, which means we will take a vote on this motion, and then we can move forward based on the vote. So, the motion that is on the table is that we will be in remote for the last 2 weeks of the semester, and beginning January 19th, we will then go hybrid and remain in hybrid until the numbers adjust and we can start bringing more students back. All in favor, show of hands. All opposed, show of hands. Okay, the motion is 3-4. And we are back on the action order.
Lauren, I move that we stay in remote learning starting January 4th through the end of the semester, and then starting on the 19th, well, we need to reconsider the decision on the 19th my brain's going 20 different directions. Let me start this again. Okay. I move that for January 4th through the end of the semester, we stay in full remote learning mode. And then at our meeting on January 4th, based on the new numbers that we get, we make the decision as to what we're going to do on the 19th.
If we could please be quiet out in the audience, this is our meeting.
Okay, so Jason, just so that I understand, your motion is to have us be in remote for the last 2 weeks of the semester. And then on January 4th, at the meeting on January 4th, we will decide on January 19th whether we come back hybrid or 4 days.
That's correct.
Okay? That is the motion. Do I have a second?
The first time.
Seeing no second, the motion fails. Start, Jason. We're back on the action item.
I'd like to make a motion that we return on January 4th in hybrid, committed through January in the hybrid mode, taken into consideration, as Matt had talked about, and the building administrators allowing those that need the additional contact, see if we can make that work. And then at the end of January, we'd look to see what mode we could go in, but make the commitment, return in hybrid through January, and then see if we could move into other modes after that point.
Okay, I have a motion to return January 4th in hybrid. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Rocky. Are there any comments or questions on the motion?
I have a comment. I'm wondering why we wouldn't see about having students return, at least with the elementary school students returning 4 days a week, starting second semester, and why we would want to wait until the end of January to make that decision.
Did you mean the second meeting in January, is that what you meant?
That we'd make the decision at second meeting of January, but at least make the commitment to be in hybrid through January. That's more what I'm looking at as opposed to going back and forth, but at least have the commitment that we would stay in hybrid through January, and would, as we've all discussed, we'd love to, get them moved into, at least the elementary schools, get them moved into the 4-day, but at least make that commitment through January.
So again, are you saying that you would not be opposed to changing that date so that second semester students could come back? We wouldn't have to completely be in remote all of January.
I'm not saying in remote at all in January, I'm saying hybrid.
I'm sorry, that we wouldn't have to commit to staying hybrid all of January, that we could make the change to go back to 4 days a week second semester? Or are you saying, no, we should not do that? I just want to make sure I'm clear, because that will determine how I vote.
Understand. I would be willing to, if we could move into, if we'd have the ability to move to more contact days, yes. But I just wanted to at least make a minimum commitment to the January coming back in hybrid. Of course, if we have an outbreak and we have, the criteria would warrant, lack of staff, all that would force us back into remote. Of course, that would, make us force that move. But at least make it a commitment that we would come back in hybrid and stay in hybrid.
So you're saying at least hybrid?
At least hybrid.
Thank you for clarifying.
Does that help you?
That does. I just want to make sure. I mean, I like that you're at least saying that, but I want to be able, that come second semester on the 19th, that by that first meeting, second meeting, that we have a plan so that parents can adjust their schedules so that we can go to 4 days a week. That is really what I am pushing for the second semester to be. And I just want to be able, for parents to be able to prepare for that, which is probably much easier than preparing for remote or, but I can handle that.
And I believe my motion would do that. It'll allow us, if we made the commitment to all of January, we make the decision in the second meeting in January to make a movement to more contact. That would allow the parents to make the adjustments that they need to with their schedules, and also for the logistics with our transportation and all of the food services, all that comes into play. That I think that they would need at least 2 weeks in order to make that switch. So we can make the decision, in the second meeting of January. And the decision may be that we want to extend the hybrid mode, but at least make the commitment that we're going to go in hybrid through January, but then we can have the discussion second meeting in January. Does that clarify it a little bit better for you, Rosa?
That does, thank you.
Yep.
My brain is just all over the place. So I just want to make sure I'm understanding, so I appreciate you walking me through it.
Nope, very good. So there's no amendment to my motion, correct?
No, I just wanted to look up our meeting days for January that we just adopted, which is the 4th and the 19th. So we would have to make that decision on the 4th?
19th, the second board meeting.
Okay. Which that means we wouldn't necessarily be able to bring the students back that second semester, or that quarter, right?
It would be the end of January. So it would be mid-quarter. It'd be part of going into the second or the third quarter. So we would start the second semester in hybrid.
I think if you felt so inclined on the January 4th board meeting, you could ask for, if you felt like you were comfortable moving forward and bringing people back 4 days a week at the elementary level on the January 4th board meeting, you could ask Lauren to add that as an agenda item to that board meeting.
Well, I think it's been an action item as Matt's been presenting the mode options each meeting, correct, Matt?
It is unless you guys make the decision it's not. And we did that when we went to full remote. We did not make an action item on that middle meeting because we decided we weren't going to make a decision until the last meeting in December.
Okay.
So,
that'd be a compromise for me if we wanted to have that decision or that discussion and option. I think the second board meeting of January gives us adequate time and also would get us through potential spike coming out of the holidays.
We also have a special board meeting scheduled for January 11th to discuss some of the superintendent search process, so if we needed to, it could be added as an action item before the agenda is published.
One more question. I know we have tried to give our teachers 2 weeks or so to make that transition. So hypothetically, if we say on the 19th, we're going to go to 4 days a week on the 25th, is that going to give our teachers enough time to make that adjustment?
I think probably less teachers and more transportation, to be quite honest. It just takes a little bit of time to do the transition. Most likely we made the decision on the 19th. We would not start it until February 1.
Okay.
If we made a decision on the 4th, then we could do it on the 19th.
So Lauren, I would like to ask if we can make sure to put that as an action item on the 11th. Would the 11th wouldn't give us the time then for the 19th either, possibly? It would have to be before.
I thought it was best to give that 2 weeks, so that would get us the week after the 19th.
I think trying to make a decision on January 4th does not give us adequate time to see a potential spike coming out of the holidays. I think, again, staying with the second, what was on the calendar as the second board meeting, outside the special board meeting on the 11th, I think the 19th would allow us to see what's happening and be able to make a better call how we could move.
Making a decision on the 11th. That's going to be a full meeting for other topics that we probably need to keep to those topics. But, so we'd only focus on the 4th and the 25th or 19th.
Then I'm going to stay with my original motion about making the decision with the 19th.
Okay, repeat the motion, please.
The motion would be that we would return on January 4th in the hybrid mode, addressing, the needs of the struggling students as in addition to that. But then in the January 19th meeting, we would take an action item or have it as an action item, how we would proceed after into February.
On February 1st.
Correct.
But it's also an action item on the January 4th meeting, correct?
I'm removing it as an action. That's not my motion.
That's not your motion.
You always have the flexibility to ask for it to be an action item on that board meeting if you so choose.
I have a comment. I don't know if everyone can hear this, but I think if we're making a motion to go 2 days a week hybrid mode, until we test that out, I don't think making a motion for 2 weeks hence on January 4th is going to be possible. I don't think we're going to be able to make a good decision on the 4th until we see what kind of data is coming back from what happens over Christmas.
And Renee, that's my point.
I think we're going to have to wait till the 19th and make a decision whether to go 4 days a week or continue with the 2 days a week.
So are you good?
Yep, I'm good with the motion.
Okay, so Eric's motion still stands. We have a second by Rafi. If there are no other questions or comments, we can move to a vote. Any questions or comments? Okay, all in favor, show of hands. Seven zero. All right, moving on to discussion, oh, nope, we are back to the original item that was B, which is now F. Consider facility use request Thunderbird Wrestling Club.
Thank you for moving our kids back in school.
Now that discussion's out of the way, and with an idea of what our learning scenario was going to be like, I move to approve the facility use request for the Thunderbird Wrestling Club, provided they meet the safety specifications discussed before.
Okay, I have a motion by Jason. Do I have a second? I'll second. Second by Rosa. All in favor, show of hands. All opposed? Renee, was that an opposed or opposed? Okay. Okay, so 7-0. Approved. All right. Moving on to discussion items, superintendent's report.
Nothing new to, I just wanted to say thank you. We're at the end of a good close in the semester. It used to be the end of the semester if we hadn't moved it. I just wanted to say thanks to everybody this semester. First of all, parents, I appreciate you. Just your patience, your support, and most importantly, your willingness to be a team with us on educating your kids. You guys have been a huge role this first semester, especially on getting learning to happen, and thanks for all that. We couldn't do it without you. Thanks to our students. I don't know if the student is still here that was here earlier, but definite thanks to all our students. I think the thing I think of our students is just perseverance. I mean, they have gone through a lot of different learning styles, new ways of learning at home, with remote. Definitely appreciate, we talk about flexibility as one of our 8 keys, and they have shown a ton of flexibility for us, and so definite thanks to them. Thanks to our teachers. Couldn't do without those people. The commitment that they have shown to learn a totally new way of teaching this year. Definitely won't be forgotten. Their flexibility, their passion, very much appreciated. All the other staff, man, just think of all the other people that have, all the flexibility someone's shown. We've got teachers teaching from home, people having to be in their rooms to help keep them going. We've got people doing jobs they never thought they were part of their job descriptions. Just lots of flexibility amongst all the people. The amount of cleaning and the amount of work that some of these people have done to help keep the school running, greatly appreciated. the administrators out there. I don't know if you all have noticed, but they don't usually come to all these meetings. They only come once a month, and most of them have been here all the time. I've talked to them a lot about my appreciation of them, and so they know. But thanks to all you do and the leadership you've shown in your departments and your schools. I much appreciate it. We couldn't be here without that. Lastly, just thanks to the board. You, like me, we didn't sign up for this, to make all those decisions, to have these hard discussions. It's wearing on a person every time we do this. And I definitely appreciate the willingness to keep engaging, keep talking, keep having these discussions, and make the hard decisions. So I appreciate that.
Matt, I just want to interrupt you're forgetting one person to thank, and we as a board, I think the district is very lucky to have you in that seat at this time. We appreciate everything you're doing, and I don't think we can say enough thank yous and show enough appreciation for you stepping into this role that you weren't necessarily expecting to do, but we're being willing to do it because you love Shawnee Heights. And I just want to say thank you. I really do appreciate the work you're doing.
I definitely appreciate all you guys.
You're here.
And I wish everybody that has joined us out in the YouTube world. I've had people come up to me and talk about meetings I never would ever thought would ever come to a meeting, and they're coming regularly. I think we are the new entertainment every couple of weeks. That's not a terrible thing.
Well, it sure beats the fights that were going on.
Good to see the engagement, and I want to wish everybody a happy holidays, and thank you for all you've done. That's all I got.
Okay, questions, comments from board members?
Just going to echo what Mr. Hirsch said and what Rocky has said. And it's been a rough year for everybody, and our administrators and our teachers have just done an amazing job. And thank you, parents, for just being patient. It's hard to balance. It's really hard to make everybody happy, and we're just trying to do what we think is best. And
I'd like to echo what Erica's saying. I mean, it's a common theme, how much we appreciate what our staff is doing, and our administrators, and Matt, you've done an exceptional job. We knew you would, so it's so fortunate that you're in a position that you could do this, so thank you. But a group that I failed to mention and how much we appreciate is the PTOs have really done an outstanding job in trying to make some normalcy with the activities. You know, I know that our elementary school administrators were talking about the Santa sightings at their schools, and that's huge, especially for our little ones, and trying to make some normalcy out of this definitely not a normal time. So I just want to say, special thank you to all the PTOs and the parents that support the PTOs to make it so successful. So I failed to do that last time. That was my little pause there last meeting. I knew there's a group that was missing, so I didn't want to miss that again tonight. So, especially thank you, and also their booster clubs in trying to continue to support our activities, and that they're missing out on a lot of revenue to be able to fund that they normally have received at the different events, and with the limited spectators, that's had a huge impact on them, but they're still working hard to support our students, and that is greatly appreciated. So thank you very much.
I want to echo that. I know last time I said I'm so amazed at how creative all of the buildings are, and I've tried to support each of the buildings in different ways, and going to see the lights and getting cinnamon rolls and pictures of Santa and things like that, and the exercise and just all the fun things that everybody is doing and all the outside of the box activities, with teacher reading stories at night and things like that. And it's just amazing to see everybody come together to do those things. Mr. Hirsch, thank you very much for all that you've done and all the time that you have sacrificed. Mrs. Beaver, she has done a lot of sacrificing. I know we all have our different points of view, but Lauren, thank you for being as transparent as possible and having us all come to the table to have these discussions. I know as board president, you get the brunt of a lot of things, and so I appreciate you just being open about all of the discussions that we've had to have. And I know everybody is working so hard behind the scenes. It was great to see a basketball game on Friday that Mr. Whitney had sent out the link, and my kids were like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "It's Friday night, we gotta watch basketball." So, it was fun, and what a great opportunity to be able to do that. Caught the middle school game on Saturday morning, so that was great. So everybody's just doing a great job trying to still pull our community together to be T-Bird strong, and I appreciate that. And so, huge kudos to our community, because everybody's just doing the best that they can in the situation that we are in. But it's amazing to see everyone come together in different ways. So, thank you.
Yeah. I'm just gonna, since you can't see my eyes, I just want to verbally say I'm echoing what everyone else is saying. And I also want the community to realize that we're going to be coming into some difficult decision makings shortly, and keep us in mind as you're thinking about our search for the superintendent. If you say prayers, say some prayers for us, send us some good so that we're making sound decisions as we're looking for our next leader. And just everybody, what I learned in our last meeting that we had is that we are so much more alike than we are different, and we all care so much about this community. And if we can just keep that in our focus, I think we can continue to move forward in a positive way. Thank you.
I had a parent reach out to me and just, and just wanted to share with everybody here that, she said that she's praying for all of us. And, I just wanted to, I thought that was meaningful, and I really appreciated it. And it can be tough, and like Mike said, it wears on you. The negativity at times can wear you down, but I just appreciated the thoughtfulness of somebody just saying, "Hey, I see what you guys are going through, and I want to let you know, regardless of what I do or don't agree with, I'm thankful for every one of you." And then the last thing, my cousin Amber had put something up, and I thought it was kind of profound and timely. So she had put out there that she said, "I ask all to listen to each other with kindness and without consuming to argument, without a blind agreement to trivializing pain. Let us demonstrate empathy and bridge a different path and walk side by side with others that we may disagree with." And I thought tonight, I was proud of this board that I think we did demonstrate that. We may not all agree, and we do disagree at times. But I thought the way we talked and had discussions tonight was awesome.
There was a comment during the public commentary that basically implored us not to let politics get involved in our decision making. Unfortunately, the definition of politics is activities that are associated with making decisions in groups. Okay? It's political, period. but I am very proud to be a member of a group where there are no hidden agendas. There are no double-dealing, backstabbing schemes, great designs of evil. We're all civil. We all have our disagreements, but we come together as 7 human beings with all of our foibles and trials and tribulations, and we are tasked with making hard decisions. And I'm very proud to be a member of this group, and I'm very proud to serve the community that supports the ultimate goal for what we're all here for, is to provide the best education for our students that we can. We have our differences, we have our arguments, and we have our moments of perfect clarity. And what I hope for now in the future is that we keep having those arguments and those discussions and those moments of perfect clarity, so that in the end, our kids get what they deserve.
Okay, well, I'll say ditto to all 6 of the comments that were made previously. But in all seriousness, thank all of you. This has been a rough year. I don't know of anybody who is not struggling right now, and I don't think it's fair at all to try to compare the different degrees of struggles when we're all struggling. We're all making sacrifices in all kinds of different ways. We are each other, are not our enemies. We have one common enemy right now, and it's the national public health crisis that we are enduring. And so I'm thankful to serve with all of you, but I will take this a moment as a reminder that you only have me as your board president for a couple more meetings, and then we have a reorganization meeting. So, and I will make it publicly known right now that I am not interested in serving another term as your board president. So you'll have some thinking to do in the coming weeks as to who you're going to elect as your board president in January. So thank you everybody for allowing me this opportunity to serve. If there are no further questions or comments, we will move to executive session. So I move we go into executive session to discuss matters related to the Champion Builders lawsuit, and this is an exception for matters which would be deemed privileged in the attorney-client relationship under the Kansas Open Meetings Act, and that we return at 9:30. And a second by Rosa. All in favor, show of hands. 7-0.
I'm gonna go into the office and
Okay.
185 and then the last one, the 12th one at 185. Like I can do that. And then I'm gonna come and I'll figure out some sort of way to get to that additional 5 at some point. But I would want probably more like 18 months to come in less, something like this.
I can't believe the old man.
Why does it seem darker in here? Is it, or is it just me?
No, it's darker.
There's no projector.
All right. Now, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right, so I've got a motion by Jason and a second by Erica. All in favor, show of hands. Oh, Rose seconded, sorry.
Oh, then no, I'm not.
Fight over the seconding. 7-0.